Let's bring in our guest, the woman who just finished third at the 2023 NOBULL CrossFit Games, Arielle Loewen. Arielle, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Has that sunk in yet? Third place at the Games.
No, I still have, like, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that is disbelief. And then I go back and look at pictures, look at videos, and I'm like, okay, it happened. Wow, that's cool. But it'll hit me in random moments, and then I'll just start getting, like, teary-eyed, like, what just happened? So I'm still coming to terms with reality.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't talk right out of the gate of how your week started, right? We were talking about this a little bit beforehand. I'm currently sitting in an airport, which we actually had the flight in together into Madison, and you, Dylan, your husband, and myself, and Crystal Meacham all got to be a part of this crazy airport fiasco. And did you feel like just kind of getting over that hump maybe, or maybe just having that wildness to start your week, just kind of put everything, the rest of what was in front of you at ease? Because you were so calm that entire time.
Well, two parts to that. Part one, we're delayed in the airport, like Tommy mentioned, and Tommy's talking to Dylan, my husband. And Dylan straight up asked Tommy, while we're delayed at like 11 p.m. at night, we're all delirious. He's like, Tommy, who's in your top 5? Who did you pick off, Tommy? And believe it or not, Tommy, I forgive you. I wouldn't have put me in there either. I was, but
that's great.
So that happens, kind of lighthearted. We run into Crystal, hear her story. It kind of put everything in perspective. Like, a delayed flight isn't that bad. We could have a lot worse things going on. And the CrossFit people were also flexible. They're like, whenever you get here, check in. If it was a legit competition day, I would have been a lot more stressed, but I knew they're still going to have my shirts. They're still going to have my shorts. Like, life will go on. And then we were wild, and me and Dylan, like, we never are without a kid. So we're like, let's go on an adventure. Let's sleep in the airport. Let's not get a hotel.
Oh my God.
Yep.
And we've never been able to do that before. So we're like, you know what? Let's have a little fun in our life. So we upped it a notch and slept in the airport. I did. He did not sleep all night, but it was worth it. It was a good story.
If I can defend myself.
Airport games?
No, we didn't.
I was going to say, I want to defend myself because Dylan did ask me at like 11. Put me on the spot. It was almost midnight. And I said, I was honest. I said, I don't have Arielle in my top 5. But I said, I do have a range of where I had her put, like in terms of like a couple different ranks. I said 6 to 8 was my spot. And both of you, to your credit, Dylan was like, if we're in 6 to 8, we had a great weekend. So let's go with that. So I'll defend myself there.
I was the same way. I was not in my top 3 either. So no hard feelings there.
So you were in your top 3, but at what point of the weekend did you start to let that sink in that top 3 could actually be your reality by the end of the games?
I think after the lifting event, I did an interview with Curry and then with you, Lauren, and that's when it kind of sunk in and the emotions hit me, because I was slowly building up my confidence when it came to cardio pieces and running and anything CrossFit-y, but the weightlifting one was the one that was going to stop me in my tracks, and it didn't. So that's when it kind of realized, like, oh, I can hang on to cardio stuff. The weightlifting is done, and I held my own. Bring on tomorrow. And I still was like, there's work to do, but that's when the thought crept in, this could happen.
Why do you think you didn't have that confidence going into the competition, saying that, you know what, I am here to win this thing?
I train at home alone in my garage. So I'm pushing hard to my ability that I know relative to me in my space. I don't know relative to the competition until I get out there and actually compete against them. So once I got out on the floor and saw, like, in the pig chipper, oh, I got second. I guess what I was doing in the gym worked. I had slowly built up my confidence of, am I good? I don't know. Let's see relative to the field. And it just played out very nicely.
Well, and I think you have one of your biggest cheerleaders right next to you right now. We see the videos of you in your garage with your daughter, and she's like, yeah, mommy, go, mommy. How does that add to maybe a little bit of the pressure, but also the like expectation or the example that you want to set for her when you're out there competing?
I think the fun part is she doesn't add pressure. She keeps me in reality. So like even coming back from the game, she's like, "Mom, why don't you ever get first?" So, so she keeps me humble. And when I come back, like life goes on. Madison's amazing, but it's its own little bubble of people see me and they recognize me. But in Midland, I take Blakely to gymnastics. I go to the grocery store. Like life does not change. So it keeps me in the moment at the games to be like, hey, this is an alternate reality. Do your best, have fun. But when you come back, you still have to make breakfast. You still have to cook for your family, like that type of stuff.
Well, and she provided a little bit of training purpose. Reading your
That's
recaps,
right.
you mentioned that the sandbag, ski bag, you were like, why am I so much stronger on this side? And you realized that from literally carrying your daughter on
Right.
one side, it gave you kind of a favorable aspect of how you were going to carry that bag on the competition floor.
Exactly. And my PT always gets on to me because she's like a functional PT. So she says, carry your kid on both sides. But I didn't realize that until after I was only on my left side so I could use my right arm. And it just built up a little bit too many muscles on one side and not on the other, but it worked in my favor.
Who knew it'd pay off, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's crazy how good just hanging on to that kid. You just get good at just holding,
I
static
know.
holds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned training alone in your garage, and that is something that, is not many athletes can do and have the level of success that you have had. The trend is, coaches, and we go to a gym and we, get in a training camp. Why has that approach, you think, worked for you?
For me, I can always push hard. I don't have a problem being disciplined showing up to the gym, but the mental side of it gets me a little bit harder. And I've had a lot of unnecessary drama being at an affiliate and a class. So it's nice to just be in my home gym. I have one other person who will show up with me, keep me accountable. His name's Joel. But it's nice. I don't have to deal with any drama. And the mental side of it, the peaceful side of it this year helped me a lot.
Just kind of going back to that lifting event, I mentioned how I thought your recap highlighted how volatile performance can be at the CrossFit Games and the little things making a big difference. A couple things obviously that stood out. You mentioned the fruit snacks right before, having those when you were like lightheaded and you felt like maybe you needed to eat. I want to know what fruit snacks those were, so I can start maybe adding a few extra pounds and hit a PR on my snatch. And then two, the moment where you were having maybe a little bit of self-doubt in your performance, and
Right.
you looked to, and your husband, kind of gave you that little extra, that boost, and it saved you probably 5-6 places on the leaderboard in that event. Just that moment of faith from him. Can you maybe speak to your mindset in that moment that allows you to be open to that kind of feedback in real time?
Yeah, thank you. Fruit snacks, I will preface with this. I like the Mott's ones, but I eat very different than I eat in normal life at the games. So like at home, if I was at home, I would eat real food. At the games, I need quick sugar, quick fuel. So I don't always recommend it, but it worked in the moment for me perfect. But one thing I've noticed when I compete, especially in lifting, I like to be very safe, and I like to maybe make 5-pound jumps instead of 10-pound jumps, because a lot of times I don't know my own strength or ability. And in the moment on the floor, I was scared. I'll be honest. I was like, okay, 221. I don't want to fail 231. I want to play it safe. 226 is safe. I'm going to do it. And then I looked up knowing what he was going to say. I just like looked up at Dylan and was like 226. And it was almost, I can still see it in my brain. He thought for a second and was like, no, 231. And sometimes I think I'm my worst enemy, and that I should have said, I'm strong enough, I can do 231. But my mental side was like, no, that's a big number. That's too scary. You didn't hit 215 in warm up. Play it safe. Just get a number on the board. But I'm so glad he believed in me and I listened to him. And like you said, we like to play the leaderboard game as far as it's easy to say, oh, if I would have gone 10 seconds faster. But Carrie Pierce pointed this out. I like to play the reverse game. So on that one, we did the reverse game of, oh, if you wouldn't have hit 231, you would have lost 10 pounds and you would have been in 22nd place instead of 13th place. And it makes you a little bit more appreciative of how the weekend could have been realistically, like, oh, I'm really thankful I hit that, instead of, oh, 10 seconds faster. because everybody looks ahead, but what about behind?
So would you say most of the time you like to lean towards the more aggressive side and taking bigger risks versus the conservative side if you kind of have that thought process?
No. So here's an example of my brain. 190 snatch is safe for me. Safe. I know I can hit it. It's heavy. It's a comfortable number. 191, that was like out of my comfort zone. So I like little increments, but like 191 is better than 190. So I was like, I'll be happy with that because it's 1 pound over that 190 number. Half the time I might be able to snatch 200, but my brain is the limiter, not my strength.
You took a couple years off to have your daughter and start a family.
Right.
How did that time away sort of rekindle the passion that you had for the sport?
It made me fall in love with what CrossFit is, which is just being healthy. When I went back to CrossFit, I had no intentions of being competitive whatsoever. I just wanted to look good in a tank top and shorts when summer came around. So my priority was, okay, I'm going to set a goal, eat a green vegetable, lunch and dinner for a month, and then try and go to the gym 3 to 5 times a week. And it was amazing how having good nutrition and being consistent in the gym over a 6-month period, 9-month period made me feel good, made me look good. And then I started performing good. And that's when I had the crazy thought of, oh, I still feel good. Why not do the open? I'm at the CrossFit class already. Oh, quarterfinals is cool. I guess I'll do quarterfinals. And there was no expectation ever of, I need to hit this snatch to perform this. It was just health.
Why do you think? I ask this to athletes a lot because they all say the same thing, and it seems like once you sort of let go of that, I have to hit this number and this number, and I have to put this pressure on it. I'm just going to enjoy this and see where it goes. Once that happens, all of a sudden performance tends to elevate, and you do the best that you've ever done in competition. For you, why do you think that was?
I don't have an exact number. Or an exact answer. I think I'm where I'm supposed to be at this time in my life at the games. If I would have made it back in 2014 to 2018, I would have been a lot more mentally immature and probably said some stupid things if I did interviews like this. So for me, I'm glad, but also for me, a big side of it is mental. And after having my daughter, it put all the mental stuff of what's important in perspective and let go of some of that pressure.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, Tommy. I'm curious, Arielle, for you, how do you go about balancing being a mother, having time for your family, being a professional athlete? Because sometimes you see these athletes that are full-time, they don't have a significant other, they don't have a child, and they're all in and have that example. But you show us such a different example, and you're still standing on the podium. So how do you balance all of that, and why do you think the way you're balancing is what's led to your success?
Yeah, I love it because my story is so different. So thank you for pointing that out. I train a lot different than my competitors. So that's another reason when I'm on the floor, I have all these crazy smiles and I'm excited because I'm like, oh, I don't have to be in the gym 24/7 and I can still hang with these girls. For me, less is more. I try and really focus on intensity. So I'm in the gym training for the games from about 11 to 1:30, and then I'll go back in the evening for an hour and just do a cardio piece. But I try and make that work time, quote unquote, very intentional, very high intensity. And then I'll do my strength stuff and I'll like mentally check out of the gym, run errands, grocery shop, go whatever needs to be done. And then the next day when I go back in the gym, I check into the gym, mentally focus on it, and then leave. And compartmentalizing it like that has helped me a lot. And it puts it in reality. The games are awesome. Being on the podium is amazing. But life goes on. And I had a really big wake-up call, like coming back from the games. Everybody wanted an autograph in Madison. And then I get back to the grocery store here and I'm walking around like, oh, I'm cool. And then like people come by and they're still like, get out of my way. Like, I need this. So it's fun, but it's an alternate reality. And I live in Midland, this reality. So it keeps me grounded for sure.
Oh man, don't get in the way of those Texans and they're trying to get their Shiner Bach.
The sweet tea and all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Fitness don't count for nothing in the sweet tea aisle. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Well, you touched on the mental side of it, and I thought there was a great example of how the mental strength and the ability to compartmentalize paid dividends for you. The first surprise event on Sunday in the Coliseum, the P-bar traverse and pull, you had, I would say, maybe some frustrating judgment calls around your double unders. And in the moment, you had an opportunity to either, let it affect you and push back, or once again, kind of surrender the outcome and keep going and then deal with it after the fact. And it worked in your favor. I'm curious, what was maybe your mindset in those moments? And what is it about that type of scenario that allows you to ultimately find the best outcome?
Yeah, it was frustrating. For those that didn't see my recap that I did, I train at home in my gym, so I have to count my own reps, everything I do. So I'm very aware of what rep I'm on and what number. So I got to 30 and I look at my judge to confirm, like, hey, are we done? And I see 26, 27, 28. So I just keep going. And I'm like, man, these double unders are hard. Let's see the next round. Same thing. 30, look over, 26, 27. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a long workout. So I don't know what to do in those moments because I feel like it'd be extremely rude of me to, in the moment, say like, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I'll just keep jumping. I'm fit. I've done heavy double unders before. I'll just keep going. And then hopefully I can do something about it after. But mentally, the hardest part was going into that event. I was a little cocky and I was like, hey, I'm good at P-bar traverses. I like heavy rope double unders. I can pull a sled. Let's try and win this thing. So it was a big wake up call and kind of put me in my place to like, okay, just show up, keep double undering. The goal is podium. Who cares if you win an event or not? And thankfully, we always hear the bad side of CrossFit. They were able to watch and confirm and help me out and confirm that I wasn't crazy. But I've never had a moment like that on the floor, and it was frustrating, and also my arms were on fire. So I had to literally just say, like, don't even look at your judge, just look straight forward. Once you've gone about 20 seconds, look over, see the count. Okay, 5 more, and keep going. I had to like mentally talk myself down.
And I think it really speaks to your character, you saying that you didn't want to argue with your judge, but I'm sure that there are athletes who would in the moment do something similar to that or get in a slight disagreement on the floor. But is it difficult to find the balance of, you're an athlete and those precious seconds count, and if you knew you were right, you wanted to make sure that that was confirmed? Like, how do you deal with that in the heat of the moment on the competition floor?
It was hard because in the competition floor, I knew like I'm not going to make a scene and I don't want this person to feel bad and I don't want to be rude to them because that's not who I am.
It's such a good human.
It's just CrossFit. But let's say that would have cost me the podium. I would have had a completely different stance. But I think even if I would have had my original time, I would have still been in 3rd place. So I didn't need to appeal it. So it's all good. But it helped to confirm that I wasn't crazy. I did count to 30 and they proved it too.
Speaking of the mental game, and you mentioned showing up and not believing that you're going to be in the top 3, and since you train alone and you don't have that sort of constant point of reference throughout the season of sort of where you are until you get to competition, how do you not get intimidated when you show up and maybe doubt that, am I doing the right stuff?
I did get intimidated, actually. We got a practice lap on the bike event Tuesday, I believe. And I was probably like the bottom 3 they did it in 20 girls went and then 20 girls went. And the first lap, I was probably like 3rd to last. And I remember it literally deflated me. And I'm like, oh, I probably should have worked on biking more. This will be a reality check. Just push hard for 40 minutes. Maybe people will die off. And then it turns out people just like to kill the practice lap. And so like when it came time,
Everyone's a hero.
Yeah,
Mind
exactly.
manipulation, winning the warm up.
They got my mind for sure. When it came time to compete, the event went amazing. So I was like, okay. So I did have moments like that, but it would always go great on the floor. There was always self-doubt and who's going to do great, who's going to do great. But once the event started, I was always pleasantly surprised.
How did your body feel after the bike event? Because we've heard a lot of athletes felt like they had heat stroke, or maybe they went out too hot. I'm curious what your experience was like.
I loved it. But I will be honest, I trained really hard for the games this year. So 40-minute time domain that's like my sweet spot. That's what I've been working on, is the longer events. And Texas heat and Madison heat, that's a cold front. Like when they were complaining about the heat, I was like, guys, you can sit in the shade and be comfortable. You can't do that where I'm from. So we had record high heats here, but it played into my advantage because my body was used to worse.
What do you do now going into next season?
And where's the line between confident and cocky?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tommy. Sorry.
I was going to say, where's the line between, my bad. If I'm on a delay, apologies. Blame the Monterey County Airport Wi-Fi. Where's the line between confident and cocky for you? And how do you balance how much weight you give those pre-race feelings? Because one thing that you mentioned a few times is your belief that you can win a test at the CrossFit Games. You won one last year, and then there were some expectations around trying to win one this year, which I can imagine getting the taste of victory is pretty addicting. But also, having confidence in yourself is also a benefit on the competition floor.
Yeah, that is a hard line. And I don't know the answer to that. Because even going into, let's say, event 10 or event 11, I went in confident of my fitness, not necessarily confident that I could beat everyone on the floor. But I don't really know the line between confident and cocky. I'm trying to build up my confidence, so I have to be a little cocky. But I mean, it did. Everybody else was winning events. I'm like, I'm fit. Why can't I win one? It's that easy, right? I won one last year. But it is not that easy. Everybody there is fit. And I was just kind of like waiting for my moment. And then I have the reality of, okay, third place in an event is still amazing. And then I'm happy with that. So I don't ever take it too far.
How you mentioned how having your daughter has sort of helped you ground you, I guess, a little bit in reality of what matters. How does having that support system at the games help you deal with all the important stuff that doesn't happen on the competition floor?
The fun thing is Blakely does not go to the games because for me, it's not for kids, but it's a fun vacation time for me and my husband. Yeah. So it's nice to compete, do well. I see him in the stands, but we also eat breakfast together every morning, eat dinner together every evening. So as stressful as the games are and overwhelming, I have to grasp those little moments of like thankfulness and peace and friends that'll be there. We get dinner every night and try and treat it like a vacation. We're in a different city. Let's compete, work out, but also like, let's go out to dinner tonight and enjoy each other's company. And then I'll focus on the events tomorrow.
Do you find that it's helpful once you leave the Alliant Energy Center or next year, wherever the games is, that you leave all of the conversations about the day and about the events there and talk about different things with your husband and your friends afterwards? Yeah. Or how do you decompress?
We do. I don't look at the leaderboard until the evening. So usually after we leave the Alliance Center, I'm like, okay, I'm mentally prepared for it. What places? I have a rough idea of what place I got. But on bad events, like the sandbag ski, I'm like, okay, what place did I get? And then we talk about it. What could have gone worse? Like in the sandbag ski event, if I would have gotten one less rep, it would have dropped me from 17th to like 20th. Okay, I can be thankful for this place. And then once we leave the Alliance Center, I have awesome friends that come. We always meet up for dinner and I love to hear their experience because I had a very different experience on the floor. So I'm like, okay, what did you see in this event? What did you think of this? What did the guys do? Because I haven't watched the guys all day. So it's fun to just decompress, talk about silly things, and eat some cheese curds.
How do you rebound from the tough tests? Because one thing that's, I would say, across your career for the past 3 years that has been an obstacle for you is maybe some of the high power output stuff, the heavier high power, especially with odd object. And you look at the handful of events that came up early. You had the alpaca, you had the pig chipper, you had the ski bag, which all had some awkward stuff, some heavy out in the heat. And amongst those, you did great in the pig chipper, but you had two of your, I guess, your worst finishes that weekend.
Right.
But then you rebounded in a strong way. Is it as simple as the decompression process for you, or is there something that you do to kind of get yourself right after something like that, which was you did a phenomenal job regardless this season?
Thank you. Number one, my goal was not to get lower than 20th place. So even though sandbag ski and the handstand walk event was my worst one, it wasn't lower than 20th place. So I was like mediumly happy with it. And then also going into the sandbag ski event happened, my worst placement. And then next was Helena and one of my best placements. I didn't expect it to be, but it's one of those, I don't know my own ability until I step on the floor and compete. So it was fun that it surprised me, honestly. I was like, oh, I've been working on running. Oh, I can tell. This is great. So I didn't expect to go from a bad event to such a great event like that. And I think I don't know, I surprised myself with how well I performed all weekend that I didn't ever think about how bad the ski bag was because Helena was there next and it overshadowed it.
Anytime you have the kind of performance that you had at the games and you wind up at the podium, I think it probably elevates you as far as an athlete goes in the eyes of your competitors. It elevates you as far as an athletic performance is concerned in the community. And then that might have a tendency to maybe put a little pressure on you.
Right.
So do you feel that pressure? And if so, or if not, how do you deal with it?
I've never felt pressure before. So I don't know if I can tell you an answer until going into next games.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it doesn't do anything because even if I stay in third and that's like my hoorah, I'm done with competing in CrossFit, it's still an amazing accomplishment. So I hope I can keep that perspective going into next season, going into Rogue. But I've never experienced people placing me high up on the leaderboard in their rankings or anything. So we'll see what happens next season.
Do you pay attention to that stuff?
I do. Well, I don't personally, but my husband does. So he'll be like, you'll never believe where Brian put you on his leaderboard. And I'm like, some things I'd rather not know, but I also know that's part of the fun of the game. Like we had our own personal who we think is going to win going into it. And you can't do CrossFit and not have your predictions.
Yeah. Do you think that it's a hard balance, though, as an athlete to expose yourself to what the media and commentators are saying? Like, what is that balance? Because I can imagine that sometimes it can be a little bit of a head game or, oh, man, like, why did they put me down so low? So how do you deal with that as an athlete, but really just as a person?
Yeah, I don't listen to many podcasts like Savan. I've learned before the Last Chance qualifier long ago, Dylan had listened and he was like, yeah, Savan called you a one-trick pony. And this was like heading to do the Last Chance qualifier, the final workout. And that's when I had a realization moment like, okay, I never had to experience this before, but this is where I draw the line. I'm not going to listen to anything. Please don't tell me anything because I just need to focus on myself. Yeah. So I've learned from experiences, but also it's fun. Like Brian Friend and I chatted after the games and he's very much into leaderboard and all that. It's fun for him to say, hey, I had you lower on my leaderboard, but your performance showed me that you've been working hard. And he said, I'm sorry, but I'm like, Brian, I don't care. I'd rather show you with my actions than any words ever could. To me, that's the most rewarding thing. I don't have to say any words. You just watch.
I mean, I feel like it sounds weird to say, but like a poster child for surrendering the outcome and letting that be the thing that ultimately elevates your game. And this year it elevated you to a podium finish. And I don't know whether you had visualized this moment before in the past. I know some athletes are big on it, but I'm curious how the moment of standing on the podium, flag draped around your shoulders, medal gets put on your neck. How does that compare to what maybe you had dreamt about or thought it might be going into it?
Yeah, actually, I have an event recap coming tomorrow, which I call the hallway. And it was in between event 11 and 12. And that's the real moment when I realized, okay, I'm 70 points up. I literally just can't get last place and I'll podium. And I know I'm not going to get last place because I'm fit. I have fitness. That moment hit me really hard because I was with my best friend, Jody, and my husband. And I was crying writing the post. But to me, that's the most special moment because It's when I found out, and I was surrounded by people who have been there with me through it all. Best friend since 2015, see me try and make it to regionals. My husband there in 2012 when I started my first CrossFit workout. That moment was extremely special. Standing on the podium was more me looking around and just realizing the amazingness of the situation with my eyes. The hallway moment was the inside with my heart just exploding, crying, all the things.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry right now.
Yeah, I'm being really strong right now. But the coolest thing, I don't know if you guys have heard the flag story, but they don't provide you an American flag if you wind up on the podium. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, after the pig flip event, I had taken off my grips to flip the pig, and they got left on the floor. I couldn't find them, so I went to Lost and Found. And Thursday, after event 2, folded up in the right-hand corner of Lost and Found in a perfect triangle is an American flag in Lost and Found. Don't ask me how it got there. And so
The odds of that.
Dylan, of course, being the goofer he is like, if you wind up on the podium, that's your flag. And so every day we would just like make our rounds past Lost and Found and be like, oh, it's still there. What are the odds? And that hallway moment between event 11 and 12, there was a specific time when Dylan left to go get the flag that we had seen. And that's when like everything hit. And it's just so powerful. It's amazing. And so we got the flag. We walked to the Expo Center or the Coliseum one last time in Madison with the flag in our backpack and just finished what we started.
There's something a little symbolic about that. I think like you may have been the overlooked a little bit.
Yeah.
And that maybe that flag, I don't know. It just seems like it was a fitting kind of.
Yeah. Me being
that's really
me
cool.
being religious, obviously somebody lost it. God put it there for me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not, you can say it was meant to be, whatever. But like there's certain things that happened all weekend that I can't describe. I can't explain. It was just the perfect weekend.
Oh man, that's
that's a great story.
I'm about to go get on the plane crying now. That's
that's awesome.
I'm telling you,
tissues.
yeah, it hit me hard, and it still gets me hard because it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. What I'm just to pivot here a little bit.
Yeah.
Social media can be a weird thing for athletes, especially I think female athletes. What's your approach to it, and how do you deal with any sort of, I don't want to say hate, but or negativity or things energy that you don't like coming into your space?
Yeah, I went to business school in college. I got my MBA. I see social media as more of a marketing platform that I can grow my brand and business, which is Arielle Loewen. I don't really see it as I don't take it too seriously. I'll put it that way. I try and make creative, cool, transition-y reels so I can grow my business. I try and post fun recaps so people can learn more about me so I can grow this brand. Not so much seriously that I read comments or read too much into them, but it's a different approach for me because at the end of the day, my life goes on and I live in Midland, Texas. So be able to post on the social networking site and that post helps me buy groceries, helps me pay for gas, helps me do this. I try and keep it in perspective of it's my business.
Do you have any advice though? Because clearly you have a very great head on your shoulders. You have amazing perspective and understanding to the culture that social media is very much part of business, especially when you're an athlete people out there who are influencers. But for maybe the younger generation that grew up with social media, it seems like maybe their perspective is a little bit different and they have more buy-in to the social media in the sense that things do sting and the internet isn't always the nicest place. Do you have any advice to maybe some of the younger generation that's coming up in the sport with all of this fame, I guess, is really what we're going to call it?
Yeah. Step one, which I learned this past season, is protect your peace. For me, protecting my peace looked like leaving an affiliate, leaving a gym and working out at home to protect my mental peace. Also, not listening to podcasts, that protects my mental peace. CrossFit podcasts. Whatever creates a negative connotation in your brain, identify it. And if you can, remove it. Maybe don't follow certain accounts, block certain people if they're rude to you. It's easier said than done, but you have to have helicopter moments and realize like your peace and your internal mentality is more important than this random person on the internet's comment.
Well, on the flip side, since you do see it as a marketing tool and as a business tool, you did mention, Arielle Loewen, the brand, and it becomes a more real thing now that you are a podium athlete. You have hardware from the games, and so Arielle Loewen, the athlete, as a brand, becomes much more at the forefront.
Right.
Is that something that came naturally to you? I'm just curious, because sometimes success in the sport can happen overnight, and so suddenly you're forced to confront maybe an idea or a business path that you weren't expecting. Obviously you have an MBA, so it's something you've a little bit more classically trained in, but I'm curious if promoting yourself as an athlete and as a brand is something that comes naturally to you.
The Instagram fun real side is I do have an agent named Jared Graybeal who works hard behind the scenes for me, so I just focus on the fun, trendy side of it. He focuses on the emails, the boring stuff. So it's a nice balance. I do what I like. He does what he likes.
You do have some fun,
I do.
more primitive reels, jumping and changing into the outfits. I love them.
I saw one this morning. It was good.
Thank you. I'm not a normal mom. I'm a cool mom, right?
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah,
No
thanks.
I love it.
So go ahead, Lauren.
No. I was just going to say, so now a couple weeks off with the games, going to get back into training before Rogue.
Yes, this is so funny. I took 2 weeks off, complete rest, didn't step foot in the gym other than to just clean it. And I went back Monday, did a cardio piece, and then did CrossFit.com's strength work. Maybe from Saturday, it was 5x5 back squats, 3x5 front squats. Very simple. And I was like, I'll do the cardio piece and then do this 5 back squats, 3 front squats. I literally cannot walk today. I am so sore that I'm like questioning.
It warms my heart to hear that you go through that too.
And this was Monday and today is a Wednesday. And I literally am like, I can't walk. My phone rang this morning and I had to run to pick it up. And I was like, So it's amazing what 2 weeks off can do. But I'm very much reminded how human I am. And I'm like, did I even podium at the games? I can't even squat.
The stars, they're just like us.
Yeah.
How do you approach Rogue? I mean, I know obviously a competition, there's money on the line, you want to do well, but it doesn't seem like it is the games, or am I wrong there?
You know what? This will be the first time going into Rogue that I have a title, and I don't know what to expect. Rogue is very different than the game, so I'm trying to keep that in my brain as far as there will be a lot more barbells, there will be a lot more heavy stuff. I don't know what to expect, but I'm going to train relatively the same way I did for the games for Rogue if I feel good, and I'm hoping it'll give me, the goal is always top 10 because monetarily top 10 is great, also status top 10 is great. I mean, to podium at Rogue and the games, man, that's a great year.
Yeah.
But also top 5 at Rogue is great, top 10 at Rogue is great, being healthy is great. So I'm like, oh, podium at Rogue. Okay, top 10 is good. Okay, being healthy is good, and I have to like talk myself down to what's really important.
Well, I think we're going to talk you up a little bit more after this performance.
You can listen to our podcast because we're going to say good stuff about you. I just have one more question, and it sort of popped into my head as you were giving advice about social media and the younger generation.
Right.
There has been, there's a lot of now younger women who are getting involved in the sport, as teens. What advice would you give to them as they now look to maybe follow in your footsteps and they want to be on the podium one day, but they're 16, 17 years old? What advice would you give to that generation of athletes to make sure that they have as healthy a relationship as possible with the sport and as much success as possible?
Yeah, man. Even when you say as you were on the podium, I still am like, whoa. I was on the podium. I actually get quite a few messages about that. And I always say, do sports. Growing up, I did gymnastics, related amazingly to CrossFit. Growing up, I actually was a diver for a season, swimming in CrossFit. I ran track, did hurdles, did powerlifting for a season. Everything those sports taught me and developed in me competitive-wise, mental toughness-wise, technique-wise, translated beautifully to CrossFit. So I always tell them, like, CrossFit will be here. But those skills you're going to learn in track, in weightlifting, and swimming, and whatever you're doing are relative to CrossFit, even though it's not directly CrossFit. So stay in your sports. Enjoy. I started CrossFit right after high school when I was 18. And it was the perfect season because high school was done. I had nothing to do sports-wise, but I still want to work out. And guess what? CrossFit was there. So CrossFit will be there. Enjoy your sports.
I think that's great because I think, and it goes across the board with any sport.
Exactly.
I think people get so hyper-focused on one thing that they burn out on.
Yeah.
And I think.
And I don't know about you guys. Tell me this, if you can remember. The first time I ever actually stepped into the gym and worked out was after high school when I was 18. I don't know what it's like to be 15 and physically go to a gym and work out. Do you guys remember your first in a gym workout?
I was probably in high school as part of football, but that was nothing like CrossFit.
Or 16, but it was going to, Planet Fitness and going on the elliptical while watching television. So a little bit different.
Love it.
My high school, our football program had a significant off-season weightlifting. We did bench, power clean, squat, and then we did some accessory stuff and some almost like interval kind of conditioning type stuff in the summertime. But you weren't allowed to start it until after your freshman year. So a lot of us were about 16, and even then, that first year was very conservative. So I was fortunate; I got to do some of that stuff. Now, granted, I was built like a beanpole, so just sniffing the weights was probably a good thing.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
Well, Arielle, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing those stories with us. I think that was some cool insight from what you went through.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I love chatting with you guys. Tommy, hopefully I will never see you at the airport again.
That is fair.
In a good way.
Oh man.
Yes, for your sake, I hope so too.
Right.
Well, we will, Arielle. We will keep you apprised of Tommy's travel situation. So if you have any vacations in the future, you can avoid those general areas.
Love it. Thank you.
But thank you so much. Best of luck. Looking forward to seeing you at Rome.
Thank you.